Hello folks, welcome to the channel. My name's Stu, and this channel has been for a few years a record of my guitar gear journey, having been away from performing and recording for over 40 years. So if you get the time, do check out the channel videos and equipment reviews on all the gear that I've been trying out, because you might just find some of them helpful. Now, in the previous videos of this series, I've been showcasing popular guitars used in blues rock in the 60s and 70s, starting with the Telecaster models, followed by various types of Stratocaster, and then a selection of Les Paul models, and ending on the Gibson guitar models that are often an acquired taste. So do check those out if you missed those videos. Now, just a quick note for those who have been asking, as you watch this scheduled video released on the Friday, I actually made this a few days ago because I am actually in hospital recovering, probably when you're watching this. And so I am getting surgery. Yes, my neck is being cut into, my throat is having parts removed. And so I may not be able to reply or respond to any messages at the time. So we'll see how that goes. I do, however, all being well, hope to give a small update via the post feature. So if you're not already, then you will need to be subscribed to get, and also click the bell icon, make sure that's ticked, so you can get notifications should you want them. And that will tell you as and when I post or upload a video to the channel. So bear with me because my throat is starting to get a bit tricky. I am looking forward to, and I'm not looking forward to, getting the surgery for this. So in this video coming up, number one, we've covered guitars and now the classic amplifiers of the 60s, 70s era, and just a quick note on modelers and software. Number two, we take a quick look and listen to offerings from iconic brands such as Marshall, VOX and Fender, as well as a modern manufacturer, but with traditional connections. Number three, if you could only have one amplifier for your blues rock, which one would you choose? Number four, conclusion, final remarks. So without further ado, number one. So in this video, we now come to the amplifiers of the era, and the question is there going to be a best type of amplifier for blues rock guitar? Now, this topic has in modern times become a more complicated question because unlike days gone by where guitarists playing certain types of music just generally chose from a small number of popular amps available, and you may do sometimes. Today, we now have the option of some fabulous modelers and software emulating every amplifier and speaker type you can think of. Absolute convenience in a small footprint for sure. Now, I have done some videos on one particular multi-effects unit, the Moore GE250, which I bought early on in my return to guitar playing, and I also bought some software-related simulators, so do check those reviews out if that interests you. However, this series is about the actual physical gear you might want to consider because you're looking for that emotional, touchy-feely vibe. You're looking to connect with your guitar, your amplifier and effects pedals, and all the idiosyncrasies that you get with that approach. Now, there were a lot of amplifiers, both transistor and valve types, being built back in the early days, and I've got a good book illustrating many of them. However, many no longer exist today, but the sound they produced is still something many folks look for. Now, in my neck of the woods, being the UK, Marshall or VOX was a badge of honour. It was a sign you had made it. For us young budding guitarists, it was. For those with more money in their pocket, occasionally you might see the odd person using the American-built Fender amplifiers. Perhaps for those on a budget, H&H, Wem and Selmer were often seen. Less popular, but yeah, you couldn't miss them if you saw one, were products from Orange. Occasionally, you would see Laney and Hiwatt, and there were quite a few others, Carlsbro, Trainer and Peavey, to name but a few. So the question is, would you want any of these old amplifiers of that time today? Well, I certainly have no interest in owning any of them because reliability was an issue. And while you still find that, well, even modern built amplifiers, they still need maintained today. But back in those days, I really did have my own fair share of amplifiers die on me. Now, of course, if you're a collector or have a background or an interest in electronics and you enjoy tinkering with stuff, then these old units will be fun to have. Choosing an amplifier today to get that blues rock sound is much easier, but like guitars, each brings its own flavour. And just like those early days, you can find yourself on a journey trying to get that elusive sound that you hear in your head. And finally, back in the day, you chose from either transistor or valve units. The early transistor types were not always reliable, particularly if the power supply in a building was prone to voltage spikes, and believe me, many were. While valve amplifiers, well, they had their own quirky behaviours. Today you have a choice of the better sounding and more reliable, but expensive to repair digital and digital valve hybrid models, and of course the classic valve amplifier model utilising newer designs in power supplies and other components. However, as with most products that handle high voltage, they still require to be maintained, especially if you're gigging. And that brings us to number 2. So once again, remember, this series is about classic equipment associated with the 60s and 70s era, and specifically those types used in blues rock guitar music. As with all the amplifiers I'll illustrate, the tones you can get will depend on how you set the controls, what kind of pickups are in the guitar, and what effects pedals that you might be employing, and not forgetting your skill levels and particularly playing style. Now, just as with any guitar, you can buy all types of amplifiers, all kinds of combinations at more affordable prices from various manufacturers, so today's guitar player really is truly spoiled for choice. Now, all being well, in due course when I come to do some videos on guitar playing example lessons, I will use a budget second-hand amplifier just to show that you can do a lot with today's offerings compared to the cheap transistor amps of yesteryear. So to start, certainly one of the most iconic amplifier names associated with rock guitar is the British-built Marshall. And while I owned quite a few different models back in the 70s and early 80s, the one that I've got in my studio is a modern build. It's an all-valve Marshall Vintage Studio 20-watt plexi, which is a modern take on a popular classic. And here are some of the tones, both clean and overdriven. One thing to note with this type of amplifier is that there is no reverb, and sometimes I use an Electro Harmonix Holy Grail Neo pedal along with it. Another important point would be the need for an attenuator if you want to get the best out of this type of amplifier, because it does sound better played at higher volumes. Now, one very nice feature of this smaller model series is it's really lightweight, especially compared to the larger models, and that's something my old back loves. Now, Marshall offer all kinds of amplifier heads, cabs and combos, so depending on your needs or wants, it's best to go to a shop and try out a few. Now, I've done a number of videos on Marshall products, if that's of interest to you. And that brings us to the USA and, of course, Fender. And here I've got two modern build types, a Fender Twin Reverb Tonemaster Digital Combo, which is based on the venerable Fender Twin Reverb Valve Combo, and the all-valve Fender Blues Junior, a modern build of one of the classic tweed combos of the early days of Fender instruments. Now, while I no longer have any Fender amplifiers because I traded them in, Fender amplifiers have, without doubt, their own vibe and personality, and for me, they really shine when they're played clean with a Fender instrument, and also they make good platforms for effects pedals. So, VOX is up next, and once again this British manufacturer needs little introduction, and this particular amplifier is a modern build VOX AC15 valve amp head, and it's capable of sparkling cleans and raunchy overdrive. Now, unlike the Marshall SV20, this valve head is no lightweight. However, it is a versatile amplifier, and I would say it does fabulous clean tones and has a really nice edge of breakup tone. The reverb, it's different from the Fenders, but very nice indeed. Again, I've done a review on this particular amplifier, if that's of interest. Now, an important point to mention, this particular amplifier can actually be set at lower volumes and still get a really nice edge of breakup sound without the need for an attenuator in comparison to that Marshall SV20. However, having said that, when you do push the volume higher, the depth of tone really does get quite rich. Now, not strictly from the 60s, 70s era, I will mention my little Blackstar Studio 10 6L6 combo amplifier, since its designers were previously Marshall employees, and these folks have brought together both the British and American sound. So the reason I'm showing the amplifier is, as I say, it has a traditional connection, but the main reason, when I was initially looking for a small combo with a boutique style look to it and capable of mimicking both a British and an American tone, particularly able to give a convincing edge of breakup drive tone, great for blues rock, this little amplifier got my attention, and that's why it's still here in my studio. It's just such a nice little amp to have around, and you don't have to crank it up to get really nice tones. So great for the studio or the bedroom. It's a digital valve hybrid. It does weigh quite a bit due to the budget construction using heavy chipboard. However, that's one of the ways that they do reduce the price. If you want to know more, I did a couple of videos on this. Now, I also have some other amplifiers in my studio, but they are more modern build, so I'll leave them out. I also use an isolation cabinet where I swap out different speakers to get different tones. I use different microphones, alter the recording sound, and I use studio recording equipment that again adds its own flavour into the final mix. So without coming off topic, you can see how easy it is to be overwhelmed with the choices available. And that brings us to number 3. If you can only have one amp, which one would you choose for a blues rock tone? Everyone will have their own approach depending on various factors, let alone the type of guitar being used, and namely the pickups in use. So, very briefly, if you just want one combination amplifier and you're looking for versatility, an amp good at clean tones as well as an overdriven tone at bedroom volumes, then there are actually quite a number of modern built combos to choose from. Best go to a shop and ask for some advice. I would say that some of them can sound a wee bit synthetic sounding, to my ears anyway. They don't really capture the vibe of the early amplifiers, and that's one of the reasons I bought the little Blackstar, because it actually comes quite close. Now, if you want to go down the route of an amp rack, owning a number of amplifiers, then of course that's a lot more involved, and I did a couple of videos on building your own amp rack and several videos on speaker choices, isolation cab, amp cab switcher, and for those really high volume amplifiers such as the Marshall, the need for attenuation. Please do comment below amplifiers you would recommend, because I'm no expert on what's available these days. So number 4, conclusion, final remarks. I'll be brief because this topic you could talk about for hours. So, all being well, I will do some guitar playing illustration videos using a budget amplifier just to show you don't need to spend lots of money to get started and to really enjoy yourself. However, I will illustrate a budget amplifier aside a more expensive setup, just to help you understand the differences higher quality equipment makes to the richness of the depth of tones you can get. Again, I've often said you can take a fairly inexpensive guitar and play it through a high quality amplifier and it will sound good. Take an expensive guitar and play it through a cheap amplifier and it could sound really disappointing. So choice of amplification, whether you use a real amplifier or some kind of multi-effect simulator, will make a very big difference to your tone. Now, all being well, that brings us to the last video for this equipment series. Effects pedals. Love them, hate them. Once again, a part of the chain of equipment that can ruin or enhance your sound. Do check out my channel playlist where you'll find many videos regarding my journey back to playing and recording guitar after that 40-year break. Lots of stuff on guitars, amplifiers, pedals, and my ongoing recording journey. As always, I really want to say a big thank you to those who take time to comment or chat. I always take time to engage with folks who take time to comment. So, until next time, do take care of yourself.